Hey there, it's Darren here from ProBlogger, and today I want to just talk for a few minutes about writing compelling content on your blog. I was asked recently by someone about, how do you create compelling content? And it's not something that you can really give a blueprint to, but as I began to talk to them, I realized that there are a number of factors that can really help with making content compelling. And I want to just share them with you. I think it's about 11 things kind of jotted down here for you. The first one, I think for me, which is, I guess the most obvious in many ways, but is so important, is that it has to be useful in some way. And it's so obvious to say this, but unless what you are creating is useful to people, it's going to change their life in some way, it's probably no point in publishing it in some way. Now, that doesn't mean it needs to change their life in a big way. It can just make them chuckle when they're feeling sad. It could inform them of something small that they didn't know before. It could update them on the latest news in some way. It could give them a sense of belonging. It's got to be useful to them in some way. If something is useful, it's going to hold their attention for a longer period of time. And so compelling content does need to be useful. Number two, a way that I think can really help to make content more compelling is when you share your opinion on something. This to me is so important. I spend a lot of time, reading content on photography, and I'm particularly looking at, people's opinions on the gear that I should buy or the techniques that I should use. And I'm not just interested in learning the technical aspects of a camera. I want to hear whether someone thinks that camera is right for someone like me. I want to hear their opinion on that. I don't want to just hear the specifications. I want to hear their opinion. And to me, that is what is most important. I get very frustrated by content where I just hear theories, but I don't actually hear how people think it could change my life in some way. So sharing opinions is very important. Number three that I think is very important is to cut out the fluff. And again, as I'm thinking about some of the videos that I've watched recently on camera gear, I see a lot of fluff in them. People sort of talking about things that aren't really essential. I want them to get to the heart of the matter, straight to it. And to me, that makes content much more compelling. Number four, visualize your reader. If you actually have someone in mind as you are thinking, as you are delivering your content, whether it be video or the written word, you're going to write in a much more personal way and for a specific type of person. And if that type of person actually gets on the other end of your content, they're going to sense that. They will get the feeling that you know who they are and that you are writing for them in particular. We've all had that experience where we have watched a video, we've read an article, we listened to a podcast, and we get the sense that the person on the other end knows us and that they are delivering that content to us in a very personal way. That's a powerful thing. That is compelling. And this really comes down to understanding who is on the other side of your content and thinking about them as you create your content. Right now I am visualizing ProBlogger readers that I've met because I know who you are and I know the type of people that you are, and I know this type of content is hopefully going to fit with where you are, and I hope that that makes this more compelling to you. Make your posts scannable. Now, this is getting more into the technicalities of it. It's a little bit different to some of the other things that I've said, but for me, one thing that lets a lot of written content down particularly is when you get to it and you are put off instantaneously by the look of that content, and particularly you are overwhelmed by the amount of it and how hard it is to read. So if you are writing content, I really encourage you to learn how to make your content more scannable, using headlines, using bullet points, using italics and bold and different things that will draw the eye of your reader to different aspects of the content. Most people want to have a quick scan of an article before they decide whether they're going to read it. And if you can create something in the scan that people have of your content that grabs their attention, and that makes them curious, that makes them realize that there's a benefit in the content that you're writing, they're much more likely to lock onto that and then go back to the start and read it through again. So compelling content is very often scannable content. That's a technical thing that you can do. So as you look at your finished article, give it the scan test. Is this scannable content? Is a quick scan of this content going to make people curious enough to want to read the rest of the content? I think I'm up to number 5 here, is to work and rework your headlines. Such an important thing, and this really, I guess, comes into a similar kind of thing to that scannable content. People look at that headline and they make a judgment like that as to whether that content is going to be relevant to them. And if you want your content to be compelling, it's going to start with the headline. Is that headline intriguing? Is it presenting a benefit for reading that content? Is it giving people a reason to read the first line? So important that you work on that headline. Don't just slap a headline on it. Actually think carefully about that. A lot of people actually take as much time on their headline as they do the content itself. So work and rework that headline. The next one is to write with passion. Write with enthusiasm. If there's no passion in you and the way you create your content, the way you present your content, your readers are going to understand that. And to be honest, they're not going to feel any compassion either, because if there's no passion in the writer, there's no passion in the reader. I think it was Robert Frost who said that. It's so true. You can tell what is going on in the writer of content very often. You can tell in the way people present on video, the way people present in podcasts, whether the person actually is interested in their topic and whether they are passionate about that topic. So you need to set the tone for your reader. If you want them to be compelled, you need to be compelled. You need to be passionate. You need to be enthusiastic. You need to invest something from your heart into what you're doing. Even if you're writing about something that's technical, even if you're writing about something that is dry, you can present that with passion, and that comes across in your content. The next one is to give your readers something to do next. This is really important. If you want your content to be compelling, and by compelling, I mean something that is going to go on and change their life in some way. You don't want just your content to be interesting. You want it to compel them to do something. And part of that is giving them something to do next. And it's not just about, read this article next, but you want to give them some homework in some way. You want to give them something that they can go away and do and apply that is going to help them to, I guess, extend the content beyond the moment of them reading or viewing it in some way. Compelling content lives on in the person who views that content. Whether it's tell someone about the content or whether that is to apply the content in some way, giving them something to do can really take it to the next level. It can make that content remain a memory for them, a living memory for them going forward. Another really important thing that you can do to make your content compelling is to include stories in it, to make it storytelling content. Now, you can't do this with every piece of content, but it is something that can really lift content to the next level when you apply a story. Quite often I'll go to a conference and someone will come up to me after that conference, after I've spoken, and they will tell me about a blog post that I have written or a podcast that I recorded or a video that I did, and they remember this piece of content sometimes from 10 years ago. And I know as soon as they say, I remember a post, almost every time they start a sentence like that, they then go on to tell me a post that had a story in it. Because stories are memorable. Stories actually hit the heart. Stories create resonance between you and the person on the other side of your content. So including stories can make your content so much more compelling. Another thing that you can do is to give your posts visual appeal. This obviously applies more to video and text rather than audio, but anything visual about your content can make it more memorable, can make it more eye-catching and intriguing as well. So anything visual. So particularly for written content, images are so important. Charts, And again, it comes down to the scannable-ness of your content as well. But in video content, what can you do to create something that has visual appeal? Rather than standing in front of a white wall, what can you put behind you that's going to make people go, oh, that's interesting, that's eye-catching in some way? Giving visual appeal, appealing to the senses, I guess, is really important. And the last thing that you can do to create more compelling content is probably the most important thing of all, and that is to practice creating content. You know, compelling content doesn't just come out of you the first time you sit down to create content. It takes years of learning and practicing the art and the craft of creating content. Every time you write a post, you're actually not just creating a post in that moment, but you are creating experience in yourself. You are exercising and growing the muscles of creating great content. And that is going to benefit people who not only read that post, but it's going to benefit the next post that you create as well. So practice the art of this. Look at what other people do and learn from that as well, and then apply it in your own situation as well. I hope somewhere in those 11 things is something that's going to compel you to do something with what you've just heard. I want you to go away and to create a piece of content that really draws into one of those 11 things. Being useful, sharing your opinion, cutting out the fluff, editing out the stuff that's going to distract people from the compelling stuff that you want to share, visualizing your reader as you create your content, working and reworking your headline, making your post more scannable, writing with passion and enthusiasm, giving your readers something to do next, telling stories, giving your posts more visual appeal, and practicing. I encourage you to go away and to create a piece of content that draws on one or two or three of those things. And if you want to come back and share what you create as a result of that in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful to you.